So, Skegy Dell Soll, Chapter 2. And action.
Hi everybody, it's Autistic Bobby!
And I'm Fat Steve. And I'm the star of the show, Princess Sandra. And together we're Spicehead-Media.
I was standing in a round square circle. The sky was green and the land was yellow. In front of me was a huge oak tree with a cuckoo clock at eye level. Jets of flame came up from the left and up from the right, and I stepped back a bit. The ground started to shudder, and suddenly the cuckoo clock opened. Out it came. I looked at the cuckoo, it looked at me, it nodded its head, and it said, "I want to be in America, I want to be in America, I want to be in America, I want to be..." And I'm like this, and then there's a jet of flame again, and a jet of flame, and it pops back and goes back in, and suddenly something's got hold of me, and I'm thinking, what's this now? Is there some bear got me, and this thing's got hold of my chest, and I open my eyes, and there's Howie leaning over me. Steve, he says, "We're not going to Manchester." I said, "Oh, right." He says, "This coach is going to Gainsborough." And I'm like, "Gainsborough? Isn't that where they make cornflakes? Or is it dog food?" Yeah, anyway, he's going all the way to Gainsborough. And it's less than 50 miles away from Skegness. So we could do nearly the whole journey on this. I said, right. So as I'm lying there, all of a sudden, this driver shouts, "You don't get out the road," the peroxide pillock, and brakes hard. How he stumbles backwards, I roll off the back seat on the floor, and the coach screeches and screams to his brakes. I'm hanging on under the seats for dear life. Howard's trying to crawl back to where he'd been sat. We stand up, and this, dare we say, woman driver, this woman had pulled in front of the coach, and he just about missed it. And so I composed myself, made my way down to the front, sat at the side of Howie for a bit. So the journey, probably 2 hours, something like that. I think it's perhaps 2 o'clock by now. And I'm half asleep and half awake, and we're coming down this lane, and as I look out to the right, there's what they called scaffolding bar, 3 scaffolding bars painted white with concrete pillars to form the fence along this road. And it pulls up, there's trees, I can see a big factory in the distance, and further back towards where we'd come from, there's a big power station. So I think we're on the outskirts of Gainsborough. The coach stops, doors open, out we get, down onto this little grass verge, and there's a ditch. So Howard's off again, leaving me to get the luggage off. So gradually I carry the luggage off and dock it down, say our goodbyes to this coach driver, and off he races. So it is sweltering, absolutely one of the hottest times of my life. Howard says, I'll just have a look over here. He crosses the road. I get his bags, I carry them across, leave them at the top, go back, get mine, carry them across, and I've left one little bag. So I'm back across the road, and I'm standing there. Howie's surveying down into this valley. There's like a pond where the cows and that drink. This factory in the distance, chimneys. So I'm stood with this bag, and I'm like getting all a bit, everybody was kung fu fighting. So I'm doing like strange kicks and rolls and things and punching the air in the excitement of the whole thing. And suddenly I decide I'm going to do a big flying kick. So I take a few paces back, and a few paces, remember this ditch is here, step forward and leap into the air and do a sort of scissor kick. And as I'm leaning backwards, I sense something, and there's like a whoosh, and a wheel off a truck, probably 3'6" tall, runs right across the spot where I'd been stood. If I hadn't have done this kung fu kick, it would have hit me and killed me. So, to my point of view, that's what happened. Howard was looking the other way across the road, and he glanced and he saw this wheel coming off this truck. The truck stopped earlier, the wheel, I jumped up, and suddenly the wheel's gone and I'm gone, because I'd fell down this ditch. So he stood there panicking, thinking he's just lost his friend, but luckily I was still alive, but a bit wet and a bit full of mud. And I mean, it wasn't that muddy, but it was in the water at the bottom, but most of the embankment had dried up because of the heat and the sun. So Howie come running across. The lorry driver got out and came, and the pair of them reached down, helped me out of this ditch. Now that shook me up a bit, proper. It was only the first day and I'd nearly been killed before the end of it. So we trundled back across the road and over this fence, down this embankment. So we're surveying the area. There's a nice clump of trees. I said this cows drinking lake thing to the right, which had receded because of the hot weather. There was dried mud around the top and not too much water. So Harry says, this will do, this is okay. So he gets the tent out, he starts pitching the tent, and I wander back, I help him, and we decide to have a stroll into town and try and see what we can find. So we leave most of the bags and head back up, and when I get to the top I see the bag that I hadn't collected when I was doing my kicks, and this is Howard's bag, and it's like what I think we call a goalie bag today, but a weird shape. It could have been a tennis racket bag or something at one time, I don't know. So rather than go back, we decide it's not that heavy, we'll carry this bag into town. So we head down the road, and then I think we go over the River Trent, and there was a dike first, River Trent, and as we're coming down into Gainsborough, today I think it's changed, I think it goes to a little bypass to the right, I'm not sure. And but in them days there was a little park on the left, and as we're passing how we go, oh, look at that, look what? She says, I'm going for a go on that slide. So Howie runs like a big kid, and he's on this slide, too big, he was bigger than most adults, and I get there, and then there's some children about 12 or 14 on this swing, and this kid's staring at us because we're acting like two big kids, but then again we are two big kids. So this boy comes over and he goes, in a sort of Cornish accent, "Hey, what be that? So we look at him, what be that there? And he's pointing at this bag. Breakfast. And Howie says, it's a bag. And this kid says, oh, by gum. I ain't never seen a bag like that before. Howard looks at him and smiles and says, yes, well, we're very busy, so can you just fuck off? So this kid goes a strange colour and scurries off to find his mum, I think. Anyway, we carry on and we come to a junction, and ahead of us is a dual carriageway that looked like it had just been opened, just been built, I think, 1976. And there's an old white pub on the corner. So he says, let's dive in here. So we go in this pub. Howie goes to the bar. He says, can I have 2 pints of lager, please? So this woman looks at him, looks at the man in the corner, and says, how old are you? He says, I'm 18. He says, but my friend's nearly 19. So she says, looks at the man nods. Give us 2 pints of lager. Remember, we'd had a can in the morning, and we both don't drink. And then he says, I want 6 packets of cheese and onion crisps and 6 packets of salted peanuts and 2 ham sandwiches, please. She looks at the man again. Man nods. So we sit at this table in the corner. We've got all this swag. We're having a bit of a feast. Crisps, nuts, couple of pints. I think we had another couple of pints, decided it was time to head back. So we trundled back along this country lane in the dark. Luckily the moonlight allowed us to figure out where we were. Over the fence, into the tent, and fall asleep into a nice, deep, restful sleep. So, living in a house with doors, windows, double glazing, central heating, curtains. Most people don't know that the sun comes up about 5:30 in May. And by now, it's like a sauna in there. You've got 2 young, fat, sweaty boys full of pop and crisps and pies and sandwiches and beer. It smelt like a sewer. So I awake to the smell. Howie's snoring away. I crawl to the edge of the tent, unzip the tent, peer out. Nice mist across the pond. So I get a nice breath of fresh air and decide to head out. So I crawl out, stand up, have a look around. There's no traffic, no noise, just bliss, just beautiful. So I root round and find some stones, and I put these stones in a pile. Put the Gallagher stove in the middle, and pan, 2 tins of beans, Heinz beans, a million housewives every. Shut up. Anyway, I put these beans on. I light the stove, and I walk a few feet away to the lake. I crouch down, head in, looking in the water, the reflection, get a bit of water splash on me, and then I hear an unusual noise, and it's like a whooshing, and as I look, there's a couple of military airplanes circling. Now, this was before tornadoes, I think, so I don't know what they were. But they came round in a pair, and I'm watching. I stood up, they went over us, they went round, went across over by the factory, and I'm mesmerised. I'm watching these. I'm thinking, well, what are they doing? There's some exercise. So as they come back round, they drop down rather low, and whoosh, right above the top of where we are. And I'm thinking, what is this? Why? And they come round again, and as they go whoosh, suddenly there's a big flash behind me, and a bang, and it blows me over, and I'm on this dry mud, just short of the lake. And I'm thinking, Christ, we must be camped in a military firing range or something, and there were no signs. So I can hear shouting, and so I turn back, and there's Howie, and the Calagas stove had blown up. The tent's on fire. Howard's pants are on fire. He's jumping around. I head over as quick as I can, and I find the pan, and I've got this pan, and I'm trying to put the tent and his clothes out. Howard runs to the pond, and he's got his gone. Not just the beans, not just the stove, but most of the tent and most of our clothes and stuff. So how he comes back is all his trouser legs are burnt. He's got one boot, the other one was wearable but damaged. He gets his penknife and cuts his combat trousers, and I think in 1976, I think he was probably about the first and only person I'd ever seen in combat shorts. And so we're wondering what to do, and then we can hear sirens, and we can see blue lights by the main road, and it's a case of, as part of the field and the trees are still on fire, it's time to get away. So we grab what we can and set off. We can't go to the road, can't see anything that way, so we head towards this factory. Said we weren't sure if it was cornflakes or dog food. I think it was dog food in the end. We get there, there's a fence around it. We head along the fence. Now, where we'd gone to the pub the night before, on this junction, there was this dual carriageway ahead of us that they just made on a road to the right, and we come out on the road to the right. So we walk down there, past the pub. There's police cars, another fire engine, and we're like ducking into doorways. So we get to this big main road, which is going where we want to go, and we head up there as quick as we can up this big long hill, staying by what bushes there were, because it was that new, not much had grown. And we head up there, and we find the first bridge. We go, it's like a concrete motorway bridge with sort of like that. We go around the back, and we tuck in there out the way, and start to recover our thoughts as to what on earth we're going to do. And strange, gone, virtually everything we had. So Howard says, remember I told you that I had a secret weapon in case I said, yeah. He says, have a look at this. Put his hands in his pocket and pulled out this ring with 2 big diamonds in it. He said, this is our emergency slush fund. I said, what is it? He said, it's my mum's engagement ring. So I didn't ask. So I said, well, let's have a look. And he came, and as he dropped it in my hand, it sort of bounced off and disappeared. I didn't steal it. He did drop it in my hand. We're in this sort of concrete V thing. There's a pillar up in front of us, and behind us, nothing. There was nowhere to the right or the left, no rubble. It just vanished. So we sat there, then we could hear more police cars heading past, so that was our emergency fund. Gone, folks. So we decided to have a little nap. Nothing much else we could do. We gathered together what clothes, and I think we had one sleeping bag between us that we made into a sort of pillow, and we fell asleep under this bridge structure, and till about probably lunchtime. It had been a hard morning for two budding, young, huge, fat, sweaty boys. So as we wake, we start to wonder what we're going to do next. So chapter 1 was the Great Escape. That was the end of chapter 2, which is Means Heinz. And I'll get into chapter 3 when I can, folks.
Hi everybody, it's Artist Bobby!
And I'm Fat Steve. And I'm the star of the show, Princess Sandra. And together, we're Spicehead-Media.